2008, the media reluctantly dabbled in a few stories on Bill Ayers, and this one is important because Bill Ayers and his wife, this guy just called for the end of the system. He said, America is over. It's over. And everybody thinks, oh, well, we'll just turn into France. But he said millions will die as they have in the past. He just said this. Now, I know these pesky conservative bloggers kept nagging and nagging about the domestic terrorist who apparently was close to Obama, and in the end, they dutifully accepted that his excuse that he was just on a he was on a board together. That's it. The Woods Foundation. We barely knew each other. That's it. And so the trail went cold. But if anyone in the media would have bothered looking into this man's father, Tom Ayers, oh, we would have found something else. Tom Ayers was a radical left-winger. He was a former CEO and chairman of energy giant Commonwealth Edison, ComEd. But he also happened to be very good friends with Obama's childhood mentor. This is the one when Mommy and Daddy were over in Indonesia, and Mommy decided that Daddy, his new daddy, was not radical enough. She sent him back to Hawaii, and the grandparents, set him up with this guy, Frank Marshall Davis, radical communist, who happens to be very close friends with Bill Ayers' father. But the coincidence doesn't stop there. No, you see, what the media could have found is that the elder Ayers, Bill Ayers' father, was the one who gave Obama his first gig and helped him break into the Chicago scene. Now, what are the odds? Wow. How come you've never heard about that? We were told by the media that they never met. They didn't know each other. I mean, that must have been weird, going up in the board meeting the first time, like, hey, Bill Ayers, your dad was like a mentor. He gave me my first job. He's really been helping me out. Okay, have a good one. I don't think that happened. I don't think that happened. You think that happened? They were on the board, and then the next time they meet is when he launches his campaign at Bill Ayers' house. Oh, you know what? Didn't we run into each other? Yeah, that's right. Your dad gave me my start. See, this is the problem. We can't even have this conversation in America, and it's important before the next election that you keep your credibility and that we talk to our neighbors. I mean, if you can make a reasonable argument, that's great. But I don't know what it is. Maybe your friends do. I don't want you to take my word on any of this. You do your own homework. Because then you get to things like this, and this is where the concentration will happen. The media will pay a little bit of attention to something like this, but they'll mock it. They'll leave out the Bill Ayers' father part. But then they'll drop this story in. And out of context, when it's by itself, it doesn't really work. People say, oh, that's crazy. No, not in context. The latest Marxist accident from the administration is this one. Their brand new slogan, forward. Okay. When you would hear somebody say, oh, it's forward, it's communist, you'd say, please, would you? It's not communist. It's forward. All right? Forward march. What are you saying? Our military is also communist? No, because this isn't isolated. This is only one piece of the puzzle. This is just another one of those things that you're like, okay. Because remember, this is an educated guy. He knows Marxism and communism. Now, the Wikipedia entry on Obama's new campaign slogan started getting scrubbed yesterday. They were deleting now references to Marxists and socialists. Why? Because it's the truth, I believe. It also happens to be a very popular socialist slogan, and it is something that you cannot miss if you know anything about Marxism or communism. It was used by the Leading Light organization, the Leading Light Communist Organization, forward. It was used by Mao in the Great Leap, forward. You remember the communist movement that killed 45 million people in 4 years? He killed them faster with a great leap forward than the whole world could kill each other in World War II. Lenin used it as propaganda as well. This poster here translates to "Forward for the motherland," forward for our victory. It's just another unlucky coincidence for a free market-loving president who has a fluky Marxist kind of association streak going on. It's almost as coincidental as Frank Marshall Davis being buddies with Bill Ayers' dad, or the Marxist professor friends, or the communist in the White House, or the grandma and grandpa sending him to the Little Red Schoolhouse, which was a communist school, or the Marxist pastor. The launches of a campaign at terrorist house Bill Ayers. He hires Marxist and Mao-loving administration officials. See, it's the whole, and then his policies. And anyone who is really being honest. Because we can have the conversation on policies. I don't agree with his policies, you do agree with his policies, but it's not the same if you're being lied to from the beginning. If somebody is hiding what their true intent is, you can't fight for Barack Obama because you don't know what his true intent is. Anybody who looked at this man's history with an ounce of objectivity would have at least a hint. You'd be slightly suspect that he has some Marxist tendencies, wouldn't you? For this one reason. It would be impossible for this man to escape it because that's what he's been surrounded by his whole life, and that is undisputed. You cannot dispute this. You'd be surprised, honestly, if he wasn't a Marxist. But if he wasn't, he'd be one of the smartest guys ever. He'd be one of the best, most effective guys to stop Marxism and point to communism and say, I know what that is, and it's bad. Somewhere he would have said in his life, if he had a turning point, guys, I love you. Look, Mom, I love you. You're a communist, and that's okay. You're a communist. I'm not. I'm a free market person. That doesn't mean I don't love you. Grandpa and Grandma, you're communist. Frank, you're communist. You know, I appreciate it, Mr. Ayers, for all the jobs that you've given me, but you're a radical. Your son is a terrorist. I don't agree with any of this stuff. He'd have a better understanding than most. He'd have a real clear understanding of what was happening in our streets in America if he were a communist and then he was a free market guy. Because we know the first part is true. He was raised by communists, he was raised by radicals, and he was steeped in it. So he'd know it, he'd recognize it when somebody was marching with red signs or black flags or communist manifesto on the streets in New York or in Washington. He'd know it right away before the average farmer would in America. And he would come out and not only warn America on what this was, but he would also, I believe, reach out to the kids on the streets and say, look, guys, when I was in college, I ran with this crowd. I know what they want. They want revolution. They want the destruction of the free market system. And they're wrong. And I know. And here's why. You'd take to the bully pulpit and you'd wake the American people up, but more importantly, you would try to wake these people up and say, this is wrong. You'd say to the American people, safety, sanity, and free markets are on the ropes. But this president doesn't.